How could creatures as weak as us possibly endure a world of ice? The air itself is an enemy. It does not fill your lungs, it burns them. Each breath is a blade, slicing down your throat, freezing the very air inside your chest. The wind is merciless, roaring over the plains like a beast that never tires, peeling away the warmth of your skin, stripping you of your strength. Before you lies a landscape that seems endless, a graveyard carved from snow and silence. The horizon stretches in all directions, offering no promise, no shelter, only white upon white, until even your eyes ache from staring. The ground is not earth but frozen stone, a skin of ice so hard that even death itself cannot sink beneath it. You press forward, but each step is betrayal. The snow gives way beneath your feet, sucking you down, clutching at your ankles like the grasping hands of the dead. And still, you move. Because stopping is unthinkable. Stopping means surrender. Your belly twists with hunger that has no end. For days, no prey has appeared, only tracks quickly swallowed by storms. When the beasts do come, they are monsters born of this frozen hell. The mammoth looms above you, a mountain of flesh and fur, tusks gleaming like carved ice. The cave lion prowls the edge of shadow, golden eyes watching, waiting for weakness. Even the wolves, gaunt and spectral, trail your steps, as if already rehearsing your death. Around you, your people stagger. Faces hollow. Lips cracked and bleeding. Their clothing, stitched hides and furs, flap against the shrieking wind, never enough to silence the cold. A child whimpers, voice no stronger than the cry of a bird in a storm, and the sound vanishes as quickly as it is born. The mothers hold them tighter, pressing fragile bodies against their own, but there is no warmth left to give. You glance at the fire, your only ally. A fragile flame cradled in a pit of stone, sputtering against the storm's breath. Without it, you are nothing. Without it, the dark would consume you, and the cold would hollow out your bones until you crumbled like shattered ice. And yet even fire feels small here, a trembling defiance in a world that does not notice whether you live or vanish. This place was not made for you. You have no claws, no fangs, no fur. You are soft, breakable, fragile as reeds in a storm. And yet you endure. Against hunger. Against fear. Against a world that dares you to give in. How could creatures as weak as us possibly endure a world of ice? How could creatures as weak as us possibly endure a world of ice? The Arctic of the Ice Age was not merely cold, it was a world sculpted by death. Temperatures plunged so low that even the rivers bled into silence, locked beneath glass that stretched for miles. The ground was iron, frozen so deep it groaned when you struck it. Snow fell not as a gentle veil but as a suffocating shroud, burying the earth until nothing remained but a wilderness of white. The cold was alive. It did not sleep. It stalked you like a predator, waiting for the moment when your body faltered, when your blood slowed, when your breath grew shallow. There was no sun to rescue you. What little light existed came weak and pale, hanging in the sky like a dying ember. Days bled into nights until the difference disappeared, and the endless twilight blurred the edges of sanity. In winter, darkness was near absolute. You walked beneath skies so black that stars looked like holes in the fabric of the world, and you wondered if dawn would ever return. And yet, this wasteland was not empty. It was filled with creatures as merciless as the ice itself. The mammoth, armored in its coat of shaggy fur, moved like a mountain across the tundra, dwarfing the fragile figure of man. To hunt it was madness, yet hunger demanded nothing less. Saber-toothed cats stalked the edges of the firelight, their curved fangs gleaming, their eyes fixed on the weakest among you. Wolves, gaunt with hunger, drifted through the snow like phantoms, their howls carried on the storm, a reminder that you were never alone. The land offered little kindness. No fruit hung from branches, no green field stretched in abundance. Plants lay buried under frost, and what little grew was brittle, tasteless, barely enough to sustain life. Each scrap of nourishment had to be clawed from the jaws of this frozen world. Every meal was stolen, every bite a victory. The Arctic was not a place to live. It was a place to die slowly, unless you defied it. The very air sought to strip you down to bone, the very ground sought to bury you in snow, and the very beasts sought to scatter your remains into the silence. Survival here was not natural. It was defiance, rebellion, a refusal to vanish. Think about it. Our ancestors endured all this with nothing but fire and stone. And yet, here you are with heat, food, and comfort, still hesitating to support Tale of History by subscribing. If they could survive the Arctic, surely you can survive clicking one button. Hunger was the shadow that never left them. It gnawed from within, an emptiness that scraped at the ribs and dulled the mind, driving every thought toward the same single question: where will the next meal come from? In the Arctic, food was not sustenance, it was survival's cruelest currency. Every mouth to feed was a weight, every empty belly a ticking clock. Children whimpered with hollow cries, their voices thin and fragile, fading like dying embers in the wind. Elders weakened first, their strength unraveling quietly, leaving only vacant eyes that stared at the snow as if already surrendering to it. The hunt was not choice, it was necessity. And necessity demanded blood. To stand against beasts of the Ice Age was to embrace terror. The mammoth towered above the hunters, a living fortress cloaked in fur, each tusk long enough to shatter a human body with a single swing. Its breath steamed in the cold, a warning, a promise that death came as easily to men as it did to prey. Yet the tribe could not look away. Its flesh meant survival. Its fat meant warmth. Its bones meant tools. Without the kill, winter would claim them. Not all prey were giants. Reindeer herds thundered across the frozen plains, a blur of antlers and hooves that could trample a hunter before he loosed his spear. Bison roamed in herds so vast the ground seemed to quake beneath them, yet to bring one down required courage beyond measure. Each pursuit meant exhaustion, bloodied feet, and the risk of being crushed into the earth by the very creature they chased. But hunger was ruthless. It demanded not only the living, but the dead. When the hunters failed, they turned to carcasses frozen in the snow, meat already claimed by wolves and cats. There, amid the stink of decay, man became scavenger, fighting tooth and claw with predators for scraps of flesh that might hold back starvation for a single day. To reach for a frozen rib or gnawed marrow was to risk claws slashing from the dark, but to walk away was to listen to a child cry itself into silence. The hunt was never solitary. One man with a spear was nothing against tusks, teeth, and muscle. But many men together could weave death from strategy. Some drove prey into traps, toward cliffs or hidden pits. Others surrounded the herds, throwing spears in waves, forcing beasts to stumble and bleed. In the frozen wastes, cooperation was not virtue, it was law. Without it, there was no hunt, no fire, no tomorrow. They hunted beasts 10 times their size with nothing but sharpened stones. And yet, some of you will hunt for excuses not to subscribe. If you refuse, at least confess in the comments why you won't stand with the tribe. Fire was not just flame. It was salvation, the thin line that separated existence from oblivion. In the Arctic night, where the cold crept through skin and marrow alike, fire was the heartbeat of the tribe. Its crackle broke the silence of death, its light pushed back the shadows that swarmed at the edges of vision. Around its glow, men, women, and children huddled close, their hollow faces painted in amber and smoke. Without fire, there was no warmth, no food, no safety. Without fire, there was only the dark. The flames licked upward, devouring wood, bone, and fat with equal hunger, a fragile defiance against the endless cold. It dried their hides, softened their meat, and made flesh safe to eat. Before fire, their jaws cracked against raw sinew, their stomachs revolted against spoiled flesh. With it, they unlocked strength hidden within their food, and their bodies, frail as they were, found new life in the nourishment it released. Fire was more than warmth. It was power. Yet fire was also fragile. A storm could drown it. A careless hand could smother it. And in a world where trees were scarce, each spark was precious. They carried embers wrapped in bark or bone, guarding them as one guards a child, for to lose fire was to invite death. Even predators, masters of claw and fang, recoiled at its glow. The wolves circled but did not cross. The cats watched but did not strike. Fire was man's only weapon greater than fear. Still, fire alone was not enough. Flesh cannot endure the wind without walls, and so the humans built. They crawled into caves, their shadows etched into stone, hiding from the storms that shrieked beyond the entrance. When caves were few, they stitched hides together, raising tents from the bones of the very beasts they killed, shelters that swayed and groaned under the storm's assault. At times, snow itself became their fortress. They dug into the drifts, carving tunnels and chambers, letting the ice that sought to kill them instead protect them. Animals were born ready for this world. Fur grew thick across their hides. Claws tore through the frost. They belonged here. Man did not. Naked, weak, without armor of skin or strength of limb, he had nothing but thought. Yet thought became his weapon. From bone and stone, he made spears. From hide, he made shelter. From spark, he made fire. Survival here was not granted, it was invented. Fire was their shield against the night. Today, your support is the fire that keeps this channel alive. Subscribe, or explain in the comments why you'd rather watch from the dark, giving nothing back. Stone met flesh, and in that collision, history changed. The first spears were not elegant, they were crude sticks hardened in fire, but they pierced where bare hands failed. Then came the stone tip, sharpened edges bound with sinew, a weapon that could pierce the hide of a beast many times stronger than the hunter who wielded it. Each chipped flake of flint was a declaration of war against a world that wanted them dead. But survival was not only about the hunt. Bone needles stitched hides into clothing, garments layered against the cold, against winds that could strip the skin raw. These were not garments of vanity, but of desperation, wrappings of life carved from death. The bones of the hunted became thread, the sinew became cord, the hides became second skin. In their crude stitches was the first whisper of craftsmanship, the proof that necessity drives invention. The tools spread beyond survival. Scrapers carved meat from bone. Awls pierced holes for stitching. Small blades cut tendons, prepared hides, shaped wood. Each creation was not just a tool, it was a thought made solid. Each invention was born of hunger, fear, and the certainty that to stand still was to vanish. Here, in the flicker of firelight, humanity's intelligence sharpened like the flint they struck. Animals survived by instinct, but humans reshaped instinct into foresight. They saw a spear not as wood, but as possibility. They saw a bone not as waste, but as needle. They saw what did not yet exist and brought it into being. And in this, their minds began to stretch beyond survival, toward something greater, toward imagination. Every tool they made was for survival. And yet, the only tool you're asked to use is your finger to press subscribe. If that feels too hard, at least admit in the comments why you'd rather take than give. They were not alone in the wilderness, though every shadow made them feel as if they were. Humanity's true weapon was not the spear, nor the fire, nor the needle. It was each other. Alone, a human was weak, skin too thin, teeth too dull, claws non-existent. But together, they became something no beast could match. Cooperation was not kindness, it was necessity. A single hunter could not bring down a mammoth, but 10 working as one could trap it in a pit, drive it with fire, wound it with spears until its great body collapsed. Women, children, the elderly, they were not idle while the hunters stalked. They gathered roots, berries, firewood. They tanned hides, stitched clothing, sharpened tools. The tribe was a machine of survival, every cog essential, every roll sharpened by need. Even age found its place. The old carried memory, the maps of rivers, the timing of migrations, the knowledge of which plants healed and which poisoned. Their bodies weakened, but their minds carried the archive of the tribe, passed down not in books but in spoken word. Stories were not entertainment, they were lifelines. A tale of where the sun set behind a broken mountain might mean the location of a winter shelter. A song could carry the rhythm of hunting strategies, each verse a tactic, each chorus a command. Oral knowledge was survival encrypted in memory, carried across generations like fire smuggled in a clay bowl. And within this shared struggle grew something deeper. Protection was not just instinct, it was bond. To guard the child was not to guard one life, but the future of the bloodline, the echo of the tribe carried forward. To let a child fall to the cold, to the hunger, to the predator, that was to let the future die with them. And so, they huddled close in the dark, bodies pressed together for warmth, breaths rising in one cloud. Fear did not scatter them. Fear bound them. For in the Ice Age, survival was not the triumph of the strongest individual, it was the triumph of the group. And in that truth lies the first seed of civilization, the recognition that alone, we fall, but together, we endure. They had survived the cold, the beasts, and the endless nights, but survival was never still. The land beneath their feet could not feed them forever. Herds moved, rivers froze, forests withered under ice. To remain in one place too long was to starve. And so humanity's greatest gamble began, migration. They followed the animals across vast distances, shadowing the mammoth, the reindeer, the bison. Each herd was a moving promise of food, of hides, of bone and sinew. To lose that trail was to condemn the tribe. But following meant walking into the unknown, into lands where no human footprint had ever fallen. Ice was no barrier. Frozen rivers became roads. Seas, locked under winter, hardened into bridges. Across these glacial highways, they walked, families, children, elders, carrying fire in carved vessels, dragging possessions on sleds of bone and wood. Every step was a wager, that beyond the horizon, life still waited. The courage it demanded is almost unthinkable now. Imagine standing at the edge of a frozen sea, the wind tearing at your skin, the horizon nothing but endless white. Behind you, hunger gnaws. Ahead, only uncertainty. Yet they stepped forward. Not once. Not twice. But again and again, across continents, across millennia. They crossed Siberia into lands where winter never loosened its grip. They followed the shorelines into Europe, into the Middle East, into Africa's edges. And when the cold world opened its brief windows, they pressed farther, across land bridges into the Americas, into islands across open water. Each journey was a severing. They left behind the familiar fires, the known caves, the graves of their dead. They carried with them only memory and the unbreakable belief that survival lay ahead. Imagine leaving everything behind, stepping onto endless ice with no guarantee of tomorrow, yet they did it. And you? You hesitate to subscribe. If you choose not to, then tell us in the comments, why stand apart from the tribe that carries history forward? And so, from the ashes of their fires and the echoes of their footsteps across ice, a legacy was born. The resilience of those who walked before us did not vanish with their bones beneath the tundra, it shaped every one of us who breathes today. Their endurance carved the blueprint of modern humanity. The ability to adapt, to suffer without surrender, to cling to life in the face of oblivion, these were not luxuries, but instincts burned into our blood. The strength to organize, to cooperate, to carry children through famine and storm, that is the inheritance written in your very veins. Every comfort you now know, the warmth of a home, the ease of food within reach, the simple miracle of light at the press of a switch, was purchased by their struggle. You sit in safety because they walked in danger. You live with certainty because they lived with doubt. Your life is cushioned by technologies and systems, but beneath it all lies the foundation laid by hands that bled in the snow, by minds that refused to surrender to extinction. Their lives were short, brutal, fragile. But their will was not. And from that will came us. You. Me. Everyone who still walks the earth. Now, ask yourself, stripped of every comfort, would you have survived their world? Would you have braved the frozen seas, hunted beasts 10 times your size, kept fire alive through storms that never ceased? Or would you have perished in the ice, another forgotten skeleton swallowed by the snow? Here at Tale of History, we carry their story forward. Subscribe now, and walk with us into the past, because without them, there would be no us.